CITI Ministries Incorporated presents Part 2, Concerns with Mandatory Celibacy.
It supports
Priest and canon law lawyer, Father Tom Doyle.
One very astute psychologist who is a retired priest said that mandatory celibacy is almost like clerical garb. It promotes this aura of mysticism, of control, of power that priests have. They have this tremendous power to rise above sexual needs, sexual desires, or the need for relationships. A lot of it has to do with the training and the preparation of seminarians or young clerics for celibacy. You're taught that it's a higher state to remain celibate, to remain virginal, to remain away from sexual activity. Of course, what does that make your parents? You know, that's one thing I thought when I was first told that. What about my mother and dad?
Yeah.
Good people, decent people. And all of a sudden, what about childbearing and child rearing? Why is that of secondary importance? Mandatory celibacy is a culture within the institutional church. It supports and it feeds the culture of clericalism. So mandatory celibacy, it has promotes this concept of the elitism of the clerical caste. And that elitism is what oftentimes leads clerics to believe, I am above others. I am above the law. I'm above accountability.
Father John Schuster, married Catholic priest.
And if anything has pushed the old car off the side of the boat into the ocean, the whole clergy sex abuse scandal. So like these are supposed to be these people who were separate and holy and dedicated to goodness and justice and purity. How could they take part in this? How could they let this happen? How could they cover that up?
Fran Salome Pelletier, spouse of married priest.
Celibacy was an issue for my husband because he never believed he had the gift of celibacy, even from long before his ordination, and he continued because the only way that he could be who he really was, a priest, in the Roman Catholic rite, was to embrace the supposed gift of celibacy. He was one of the priests who came to the conclusion that he could no longer live authentically as a priest within this struggle with celibacy, and it was impacting his priesthood in that sense. He did not want to leave the active ministry, but the reality is that he chose, for him, the authentic choice was to leave the active ministry and to marry. But he never denied his priesthood at all, ever.
When you're in training, you are told to take for granted that you'll be a celibate. And you think, you're led to believe it'll be okay. You'll have the power from God, you'll have the grace to take care of it. But it doesn't, let me tell you, that's a myth. If that were true, there wouldn't be 25,000 plus married priests in this country and a few 100,000 throughout the world, plus the countless priests that are having relationships with women or men. Celibacy never really worked.
It's just that the seminary held me back, and the celibate lifestyle held me back, whereas being married would have given me many more challenges, which did give me many more challenges, which opened me up and allowed me to grow and develop in a way that never would have happened had I stayed in the mandated celibate priesthood.
In the last 50 years, 125,000 priests had to leave their clerical positions to marry due to mandatory celibacy rules. This is in spite of the fact that over 50,000 Catholic churches have no priest. And Pope John Paul II said, celibacy does not belong to the essence of priesthood. The Apostle Peter and many of the apostles were married. Most priests, bishops, apostles, and popes married and fathered children for 1,200 years after Christ, and no one knows if they married before or after their calls to ministry.
When my husband left the active ministry, because he never left the priesthood, he was 55 years old, and it became a very crude and rude awakening to life as it is in the United States. He was told summarily that he had nothing to offer anyone. It was a devastating time. So it was a time where he experienced rejection from the hierarchical church, which in its own way was saying he had nothing to offer any longer because he, in their eyes, was a traitor.
Father Stephen Sabanos, married Catholic priest.
When someone says to me, well, you left the active ministry, you broke your promises, I say, hey, baby, I got a better promise from God that He's going to sustain me. And as I walk this earth, He has graced me with not only that priesthood, but with that wonderful gift of marriage. So that argument of breaking your promise doesn't hold water with me anymore.
I think there's a real strength right now, in terms of people looking at married priesthood as a more authentic type of ministry, and one that can be more inherently trusted by the people on the street.
The classic argument used to be that a priest is celibate because he's married to his people and he has to devote himself completely and totally to his people. That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. I served in the military 20 years with Protestant chaplains and Jewish chaplains. Let me tell you, those guys were just, if not more, dedicated to their people, to their ministry, and they had wives and families as any celibate priest I've ever known. So that, I think, falls flat. The monetary thing, it is, what's impractical about it? Why can't you have ordained men as priests who have full-time jobs somewhere and function part-time as a priest, or half and half, as we're doing with permanent deacons?
If there's one thought, one word that I would use, it would be waste. There are so many good resources that are available to Rome right now to help them achieve their mission as church, to build community, to help people grow in the spiritual life, to bring them closer to living the values that Jesus showed in the Gospels. And if Rome wants to renew the church, if they want to get people back to church, if they want to stop parish closures, if they want to clean things up sexually and everything else, they need to start using all the resources that are available and bringing back married priests who have put themselves into the fabric of life, who have taken all the big risks. We would bring a lot of practical, good wisdom back to the church and start, just like in 2 Corinthians, to pull all those different gifts that are in the community and give those gifts a chance to help everybody else. Right now they're saying only the celibate men that we like are allowed to do that, and that's wrong, because it's wasting all these other resources when people are hungry for spirituality. Roman Catholicism could once again become the greatest religion in the world, but they're not using all the resources.
Limiting the priesthood to celibates only seems to value celibacy above Christ's real presence in Eucharist and above God's Word, when access to Masses and sacraments are compromised for lack of priests. For additional information, please contact CITI Ministries at 1-800-PRIEST9 or www.rentapriest.com.